This week on the DudeCast, what we did for the Day of the Dude.
Website's live, dude.
I know, Donnie. Shut the fuck up. Beau and Van will talk Donnie, Walter, and the Dude. Blather on about this, that, and the other. And finally explain why Daniele Bolelli is not on the podcast. So just sit back, take her easy, dudes. I'm Van Daniels. I'm chilling with Beau Reed, and this is the DudeCast. Hey, Beau, how's it going, dude?
Oh, it's going good, man. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Oh, not too bad.
Okay, dude, we should probably do some introductions here, so why don't you let everybody know who you are, Beau?
A little bit about myself. Let's see. Not a whole lot to say. From small town in Iowa. I work third shift at a prison, and yeah, that's basically it.
A prison?
I came into work. I'm a correctional officer at a Iowa State facility.
So how does that fit into, like, dudism? How does a correctional officer find himself, like, to the dude, basically, basically a stoner kind of, I can't imagine that they look too kindly on that kind of, mind-limbering activity where you work.
True. Exceptions had to be made in certain parts of the lifestyle. Now, that's not to say that before I didn't partake, but given my current situation, I had to cut that one small part out. I still enjoy good White Russian every now and then, though.
Oh, yeah, nothing wrong with that. So that, yeah, the funny thing is, I don't really partake myself either. It's kind of strange because the state that I live in, we don't legalize. I live in Florida, so down there they're kind of even though the southern part of the state's pretty loose, everything else down there is pretty right uptight. So. We're working on getting things legalized last year, and actually about 2 years ago, and it was one of those situations where you thought things were going good, watching the polling numbers come in and things like that for medical legalization, and everything's coming in, we're above 50%, and then they come out and they say, oh, well, we had to be at least 60% of the vote because we needed 2/3 because it's a constitutional amendment to the Constitution of Florida. So it has to be 2/3 to pass. So it's like everybody took this big, punch to the gut. To me, it's just, it's one of the stupidest things ever to be illegal, and it's more about the propaganda and everything that was put into it from back in the 20s and 30s, and it doesn't make sense to me that it's not legal. But
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I was the same way. We have the very Republican governments, but we're a very liberal state. It's really kind of a strange situation Iowa finds itself in with most things.
Yeah,
we were one of the first states, if not the first, to legalize gay marriage, but we still won't legalize medicinal marijuana.
Yeah.
And we also just got it passed so you could get those oils that help with seizures and epilepsy.
Right.
You can use them in Iowa, but you can't buy them in Iowa. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
Well, yeah, not a lot what the government does anymore makes sense. We lived in some pretty fucked up times. So, but yeah, I actually have spent some time in Des Moines area. So I was actually pretty surprised by how progressive that area actually was. So it spent some time downtown. It's got the kind of the I don't know what you'd call it, the hipster urban feel down there now.
Yes, I'm from the Iowa City area, which is about as liberal as it gets, really. It's very progressive down there.
Yeah.
Just about anything.
About how far is that from Des Moines?
Good 2 hours, 2 hours, 45 minutes or so.
Yeah.
I make it up to Des Moines every once in a while.
Yeah, it's a nice area. I was, actually pretty surprised. I was, God, what was it? I was outside of Des Moines recently and working on a project there, but kind of, not quite the same during the winter. You don't get out and explore as much as you get to during the summer. So I didn't make it back into Des Moines.
Iowa winters can be rough.
Yeah, they kind of suck is what they do. So
yeah. Very, yeah. I can't argue with that. It's
yeah.
So you're a traveling IT guy.
Yeah.
Is that what
Yeah,
to put it simply, I guess.
That's about as simple as you can put it. Yeah, I might get my I feed the monkey by just going around and telling people what they should do with their computer networks. That's kind of what it is. But it's a bunch of Type A personalities that I work with, so it's kind of a different thing to be a laid back individual. And I think it actually bodes well for me when I'm working with my customers because for the most part they're not used to people coming in and just taking a bit more relaxed approach and thinking they know everything. And so, I realize that I don't know the damn thing. I come in and, I'll work with them and make sure that they're taken care of and make sure that, we get the things done that they need to get done. So I think the laid back approach is kind of refreshing for them after, you get a bunch of headstrong people in that think they know everything and blow things up for them instead. So it works out. It's kind of a different deal. You'd think it'd be kind of an uptight job, but thankfully it's not. So I get to go around the country and meet a bunch of good dudes and take it easy, and I don't know. You get a big, broader perspective on even just our little sector of the world by getting out and seeing things, eyes open a little bit.
I'm about as closed off as it gets, so I can appreciate that. In the travel and stuff, that would be nice. It's interesting that you say the Type A personality thing and how your laid back sort of attitude affects your day to day. Because I find myself in a similar situation at my job because, like, when it comes to dealing with inmates, most other correctional officers are pretty gung ho, pretty like hardcore, and they're watch a lot of, I don't know, maybe they watch too much Shawshank Redemption.
Get a bunch of reactionaries in there.
Yeah, so to not be like that actually makes my job a lot less stressful because you gain a lot more respect from the inmates when you're laid back. You're not, you don't have to take every situation right to 10. They actually use me quite a bit for de-escalating hostile situations or negotiating people down from things because I'm so laid back. It works out well in my line of work. It's better than you would think it would be.
Yeah. Well, what I think, and kind of how that ties back to the whole dudism thing is like everybody I've met that's kind of been involved with dudism, I think one of the deepest core things I can say is that, it's typically people who have, the capability of empathy. You know what I mean? It's like, you go with the flow, you're able to pick up on other people's, how they're feeling, how they're reacting, things like that, and I think that people are more empathetic and can put themselves in other people's shoes. And I don't think you see a lot of that outside of, I guess more open-minded kind of people, I dealt with, a lot of people in my life that you could just tell that they could never put themselves in anyone else's shoes. They were never empathetic. So I agree in your type of role where you're in a prison and you've got, these guys that, there's more of them than there are you. So you got to have some weapons in your pocket, and empathy is actually a really powerful weapon when it comes to that. If you can put yourself in their shoes and relate to them, that's gotta have benefit where you're at.
It really does. It helps immensely because, they see that I'm not there to make it worse. It's not my job to make, going to prison is the punishment. It's not my job to punish. My job to supervise, essentially. I'm just there to make sure the building doesn't burn down and nobody gets stabbed. Other than that, if those two things don't happen, it's been a pretty good day.
Yeah, as long as you can go home with a pair of pants without blood on them, right?
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, so how is it you ended up, kind of relating to Dudism, I guess it is. How did you find it?
Well, I've always been just a pretty laid back guy in general, but finding Dudism was kind of sort of an interesting journey. I was raised in a traditional Christian household, but it just never clicked. If that makes any sense. I never quite found my footing with that. So the older I got, the more I started looking outward, seeing what else spiritually there was, since that didn't really pertain to me. And I stumbled upon Taoism a few years back, and I really dug it, sort of got into that. And just by chance one day, I stumbled into Dudism, and being the Lebowski fan that I am, it just all sort of made sense. To me, it seems like Taoism wrapped in a modern package. It's easy to relate to. So
yeah,
it was
definitely. I don't think that's too unusual, man. In fact, I mean, mine's pretty much the same thing. So let me ask you. So you said Christian. So you grew up Christian. So what facet of Christianity were you? Were you Baptist, Catholic, Seventh-day Adventist? Where were you in that line?
Well, my grandparents are Catholic, so I went to a few Catholic masses and dabbled in that church a little bit. But my mom, who raised me, was non-denominational, so we really didn't fall into any specific category. We didn't even go to church all that much. It was a pretty sporadic thing. And I think that's a big part of the reason why it never stuck, is because a lot of it just felt hypocritical. You live your life as a sinner, and then one day a year you go to church and God says, oh, it's cool. You came and you put your $10 on the plate, so you still get to go to heaven. And it just seemed, odd. So I decided, yeah, that's a little out there for me, and there's nothing against it. Yeah. And I don't like to bad talk other religions or anything like that.
Oh no,
but it just
wasn't
my cup of tea. So I stepped away from it, and I spent some time doing the whole atheism thing, but that just kind of leaves you empty. You just, the world's only black and white, and there's no gray area, and that's kind of a boring way to live. So
yeah,
I just started looking.
Yeah. So, well, I don't know, to some degree, the funny thing is, like, so much of what you're saying just, rings completely true. It's like almost a parallel story. I mean, so I grew up in a Catholic family, and very similar to some degree that, we weren't real hardcore, didn't go to church a whole lot. It wasn't like it was being crammed down my throat, but at the same time, the times that we did go to church and stuff like that, it was, the typical, teenager, not really, it wasn't really a rebellion thing. It was more of a just wanting to be able to question things. And, so the consistency was, when you started to question things and you were possessed or something, you were, not respecting the authority of the priest and whatever, right? So you were just supposed to take it unconditional and without question. And, I saw a lot of the same hypocrisy, the people coming to church that, they're treating people like shit, pretty much throughout the entire week, and they get there on Sunday and say they're, Hail Marys and Our Fathers, and all of a sudden they're all better. They're good people now. So as long as they put that, the money in the collection plate, like you said. So I just
they're just
didn't subscribe to all that, and so I started pushing against it and wanted to see what else was out there, and so made the early dabbles into God. Just I took the trip down the isms path, and started looking at Buddhism and traditional Western secular, that whole route, looking at all of that. Then kind of got disillusioned with Buddhism the same way I got, disillusioned with Catholicism. The early messages, at least, the things you learn about earlier are, and you get this idealistic view of, some very good ideas, treat other people well and that type of thing, is at the core of all religions, really. But then the further you get in, I didn't like Catholicism or really any Christian type of religion so much because of the whole, dogmatic mythology kind of thing, where there's, this all-powerful God that, you can't question, and the words are written, and just got to do what it says, man. But then, the early appeals of Buddhism and Taoism, or well, more specifically Buddhism, because I didn't get to Taoism until kind of pretty late, pretty much almost to the point where I was already looking at Dudism. But, with Buddhism, the core principles, especially, the idea that you don't believe anything that anyone ever tells you unless you experience it and can identify with it and know it to be true yourself. And that there wasn't, this whole idea of, an all-powerful being. And Buddha was supposed to be more of an icon where, he's someone you want to live like rather than idolize, right? You wanted to live like the Buddha so that you could, achieve enlightenment. The problem with most Buddhism that's out there, especially, some of the, I guess, more traditional, when I started looking into the actual practice and, found a lot of the groups are, almost make it dogmatic in itself. They're either worshiping Buddha as a god or they're worshiping their guru, and you can't question the guru. So, I kind of spun out with that. I love the messages, but, the idea of Buddhism itself, because of the way it became dogmatic in a lot of areas when I got deeper into it, I had to get out of that. But then I kind of ran into Taoism after that. And then with Taoism, it's so simple. It's just, the messages are so clear and easy, and, the go with the flow, and the whole idea that, the Tao, or, well, the Tao. Okay, so if you're going to be, I don't know how out there you've been with Taoism, but you say Taoism and people go nuts. It's Taoism. No, whatever. But,
yeah, I'm not much of a stickler for that. It's the message, the name.
Yeah, the idea that there's no absolute in Taoism. What, if it can be written, it's not Taoism. It's not the way. So you have to find it for yourself, and it's a path that you make on your own. And so that really kind of it favored well for me. So I look at Zen Buddhism, which is kind of a mix of Taoism and Buddhism, and it kind of fits right in. That's a good spot. But it was odd because actually the guy that's going to be our guest for the very first DudeCast, he is kind of by accident the whole reason why I actually found Dudism to begin with. I'd seen the movie a couple of times. I thought it was cool. I liked it. And I just happened to be out looking for a book of his. So he wrote this book called 50 Things You're Not Supposed to Know About Religion, right?
That's actually in my Amazon wish list right now.
Well, there you go. So this guy's name is Daniele Bolelli, right? So I've been listening to his podcast for a while, and I've been listening to him since probably about 2012. But anyway, I was out looking for his book, and the Amazon suggested list came up with the Abide Guide along with his book. And I'm like, what the hell is the Abide Guide? And it's got a picture of the dude on the cover and stuff. And so it's like, oh, what the hell? So I clicked and it was like, I think $5.99 or something like that on Kindle. So it was ridiculously cheap. So I was, I'll check that out at the same time. And then started reading. I was like, well, damn, this is a lot like Taoism. This is, right in line. And it's got more of the other things in there that I kind of like, with the attitude. So it's like, because I'm a pretty laid back, go with the flow kind of guy. It took me a long time to get here, but I spent I spent 15 years in a reactionary marriage, and so I went through that phase of life of wanting to go out and conquer the world and make all kinds of money and just do all that, and it didn't take. Well, it took me 15 years and a major crisis in my life that was my divorce, that to kind of realize, man, I was like thinking about all this shit wrong. I had my thinking on this was just not in line. And there's so much more to life than just chasing after shit and, the whole consumerist culture that we live in. And, so that's, that kind of where I got to it. And then, so I found Dudism accidentally and kind of, it has sat well with me. And, even after reading a few other of Oliver's books. So it's like, there's never been a point in any of that there's supposed to be anyone who knows everything, that you were supposed to, that there's really any one way to be a Dudist, right? It's the whole idea of finding your own path to it. And, I don't know how, but I suppose even a Trumper could be a Dudist somehow, but, yeah, it's so it just kind of, it sat well, so I kind of stuck with it, and so here I am. I got into it enough to start a website, start this DudeCast, and hopefully things will go well from here. But I want to get the message out, and
Yeah, well, I feel like the world can only get better the more dudes there are in it. So I'm right there with you. I mean, that was one of the things that spoke to me about it as well, is that there is no one way to do it. There's no crazy ritual or things I have to do. I don't have to wake up every morning and spend 5 hours devoted to prayer in order to appease my imaginary friend. It doesn't. I like that I don't have to do any of that because it's not necessary. The laid-back attitude of the religion as a whole was something that spoke to me, because it's something that I take seriously without having to be too serious. And it's kind of a nice way to go about it.
Far out, man. Okay, dude, let's talk some Big Lebowski philosophy. The things I learned from watching The Big Lebowski. One of the things you always hear people talk about, especially like in the, if you go to the Dudism forums and stuff like that, or even on any of the Facebook pages, you get a lot of people in that talk about the relationship. Usually the relationship they talk about is between the dude and Walter, right? So are you more dude or are you more Walter? So, and really there's kind of the relationship between the three characters in the movie that I think are kind of tied to the whole dynamic of the movie, and really the thing that kind of has spawned this whole Dudism culture and all that stuff that we're in. So I wanted to get your thoughts kind of on what you think, in terms of how that plays out, what their relationship kind of means in the story and what it means in Dudism and that kind of thing.
Well, ultimately, I think it boils down to balance. I think the Walter and dude balance each other out. And, Donnie is just kind of there. He's the neutral good in this situation. I mean, he's the one true innocent in all of it from the start. Everybody else has their hand in it in some way or whatever, and he's basically just a spectator in the whole thing. And he's in no real way ever involved, except for going to In-N-Out Burger. But at the end, it's kind of ironic because he's ultimately the only one that suffers from the whole ordeal as well. I mean, when you reach the end of the story, nothing really gets solved. The nihilists never get their money. Dude never gets his rug back. The Big Lebowski never gets to keep his money. Everything just kind of goes back to the way it was, except for Donnie. Donnie gets sacrificed in some way. And to me, it just, he was just his dynamic and all of it was just to be the neutral good in there. And you have the dude that just kind of the take it easy, go with the flow kind of guy, but he's still involved. You have Walter, who's just flat out, in your face, but at his core, he's trying to do the right thing. I always felt the Walters of the world are trying, they just need the dudes to keep them in check, balance each other out.
Yeah, I definitely, that's, an interesting way to look at it. And I think, a lot of that rings true. Donnie definitely was the guy that, really didn't have any involvement in anything. And, like you said, he paid the ultimate price for, the everybody else's drama, basically. So, so I guess what my view is, it's a little bit different, is that I kind of view like, the dude and Walter and Donnie kind of as, the symbol for Taoism when you look at it, so you've got the positive force and the negative force, right? So to me, Donnie is kind of, lets everything happen around him without having any impact or any involvement with it. He's kind of the negative end of the spectrum, actually, where he has too little influence on his own life and just lets things overpower him. He lets, Walter just, tell him to shut the fuck up all the time without sticking up for himself ever. He and Walter, he's the ultra aggressive, and he's going to go out and, and speak his mind even over inconsequential stuff. He's too reactionary. He goes after too much, and for me, the dude is just kind of that energy that kind of holds the whole thing together. He's kind of the flow that keeps things spinning. He's holding Walter back from going too far over the edge, and he's protecting Donnie, when things are getting too hot, too heavy, so like, during those confrontations, if, watching the movies during the confrontations between, when Walter's going off on Donnie and telling him, shut the fuck up, Donnie, shut the fuck up, Donnie. You're like a child walking into the middle of a movie, all that shit. The dude like will take it to a certain point and then he'll misdirect Walter. He'll take him off the path. He'll get him off of Donnie's back, so he's always interjecting with something and stopping that whole play. So you kind of get, at least for me, it kind of was like the idea that, he's kind of there to keep the things in balance, similar to what you were saying, he's keeping Walter in check, but I think he's keeping Donnie kind of there too. He keeps Donnie from falling over that edge, and then, at the end, Donnie, who let everything roll over him, ends up being the one who's paying the price. And I think it kind of goes to show that, also that in life, you kind of have to have that balance. You have to be that centerpiece. You have to be the person that kind of is willing to bring people together, to be empathetic, to feel both sides and see, both Walter's perspective and Donnie's perspective and try to equal those things out. And to me, that's kind of the message. So very similar to what, your view is on it. Just, it's interesting to kind of hear the differences,
That is interesting. That's a good point that, Donnie's the one extreme, Walter's the other, and dudes in the middle kind of hold it all together. That's definitely, you can definitely see that he's the, he's
fabric of the universe, man.
he takes the qualities of both and turns it into, the dude, because the dude doesn't necessarily get aggressive, but he will stick up for himself when he has to. And he's
exactly.
also laid
for the
back.
things he believes in, the things that he believes are important. For him, the rug. Okay, so this thing that he's going after, the rug wasn't just something he threw in the room. It tied the room together. It tied his life together. It was it was his point of balance to some degree, and somebody came in and ripped it out and took it away from him, and he was willing to stand up for it and go after it. What he learned was, that he worried too much about it and got too involved in it. And, the dude could have just, lived with a piss stain on his rug. But, he went out and got involved in this whole mess as a result. But at the same time, he was still willing to make that stand and go out and go after, something he believed in.
I think that's important. And Walter was kind of the driving force behind it. And maybe there's something to be said about, letting someone else totally influence your decisions. I mean, he was upset that the rug got traded upon. But, when it ultimately came down to it, when he was initially telling the story, he wasn't seeking any sort of retribution or trying to get his rug back. He was just venting about the story. And Walter comes up with the idea that, well, the Big Lebowski's responsible for it, so why not take it to him? And it sparks this whole kind of out of control situation.
So he kind of let Walter pull him off balance.
Yep. And in the end, he never even gets it back. The rug he does gets taken away too, and he ends up rugless regardless.
Yeah, well, I don't know. We kind of never get the answer to that, right? We don't know if Maud hooked him up or payback for the seed, or you don't know. You just don't know, dude.
I feel like he's kind of owed one. I mean,
yeah, he gives her a kid and everything, and
yeah.
But yeah, so that's definitely an interesting perspective. So let me ask you one other thing. So in the movie, I actually thought that there were kind of two Dudley people in the movie. So who do you think the other Dudley person was? And it probably would surprise you to hear what I think anyway.
I'm assuming you're either going to go with Brant or the stranger. Brant, because Brant goes with the flow. He's always pretty laid back. He just kind of, he does his job. Brant's the guy you can count on. I mean, he's on the wrong side, but in his own way, he's still pretty well neutral. I mean, he's just doing his job. Brant doesn't go out of his way to be outwardly aggressive or evil in any sense. He's actually pretty pleasant throughout the whole thing. And then you have the casual stranger that appears out of nowhere and gives us the whole story. Also, he digs the dude's style. He doesn't like cuss words, but
well, so the stranger is definitely Dudley. I would say that, but that's actually not who I was thinking about. And Brant, I think Brant was pretty dude, with the exception of the idea that he was willing to go along with the schemes of the Big Lebowski, right? So, he was kind of involved in the planning and things like that, and so you kind of get the sense that he knew what was going on, but he was, at the same time, he was pretty cool to the dude. He was respectful to him. He's the only one that actually called him dude, so rather than Lebowski or Jeff or whatever else, apart from Walter and Donnie, but or the clerk at the bowling alley, but the Big Lebowski, he wouldn't call him dude, and other people in the movie also were calling it, like the police and things like that, they were calling him either Mr. Lebowski or Jeff or whatever. So Brant was at least respectful in that, and understood that the dude liked to be called dude, so he always calls him dude. So, but at the same time, I thought he was kind of in on the scheming, so I didn't think him very doodly for that.
Oh, I was gonna say, I always felt that Brant was kind of what you get if you have the dude without as much Walter in him. He's more Donnie. He
he's kind of Donnie.
Like he's submissive to the will of the Big Lebowski, telling him what to do.
Yeah,
and he, it's hard to say. You don't really get a good feel for him. I mean, I will say he's probably the world's greatest butler, but other than that,
yeah, he was kind of a pushover in that. No, actually, what I was going to say is Maude. So believe it or not, and for a few reasons, right? So Maude comes from money, and she's obviously loaded and has a lot of it. But at the same time, she pretty much lives in a lifestyle that she just doesn't give a shit what anybody else thinks. She's out there, artist, and doing what she wants, and making art, and really doesn't seem interested in the money aspect or anything like that, or even really being kind of in her dad's businesses or anything like that. She just, and even though she doesn't particularly care for him or his ideals, she still gave him a place in her life, and was giving him a trust fund and that type of thing. So you kind of get the idea that she goes with the flow and just kind of is there as well, and apart from her speech, which is basically was sculpted in her education and where she's the life that she led, she's pretty dude.
Honestly, I couldn't argue with that at all. She comes off as very dude, other than the incident where she sends a henchman to get the rug back. But
at the same time, it was kind of the same thing that happened with the dude, right? It was, during the conversation, she said the rug had sentimental value to her. It was a rug that she had given her mother. And so she took the same stance the dude did. It was something that was important in her life. So she took a stance as well. So I kind of put her right there with the dude on that.
That's true. That's a good point. I also feel it's kind of a karma thing, since the dude acquired the rug dishonestly to begin with.
Yeah.
And, well, the universe always is about balance, and it came and got its rug back. So
there you go.
There is no action without consequence.
Yeah, exactly. That, I mean, that's a big part of the overall picture, right? There's nothing that happens without some type of equal and opposite reaction.
Yes, I think that's a big theme of the whole movie is that, everything the dude tries to do or anything anybody tries to do, it ultimately ends up making the situation a little bit worse in some way. There's always some kind of reaction, and it's, at the end when they all just say fuck it, that it really balances itself back out. Just go bowling.
Just go bowling, dude. So anyway, what'd you do on the day of the dude?
Unfortunately, this year, my day of the dude was pretty undude. I worked the night before, so I got off at 6 in the morning. And it being the holidays, I basically all I did was I watched the movie, as is tradition. Had a few oat sodas, and went to bed. It was entirely uneventful. Cool. My special lady friend, though, had a cool surprise for me. We weren't able to do it that day. I believe it was a Sunday this year, right? Monday?
Yeah, it was Sunday.
I don't know. What day is this? Yeah.
It was a Sunday. It was what day is this again?
that following Tuesday, there's supposedly a Lebowski themed. I say supposedly because even though I've been there, they say that they're a Lebowski themed restaurant, and she thought it'd be cool, and we went and checked it out. It was pretty disappointing, actually. They marketed themselves as like this dude sanctuary almost, but you go there and they have like 3 posters on the wall, and that's it. And one of their burgers is called the Lebowski, and I was like, well, that's sort of misleading. I mean, the same posters I have. Could have sat at home and ate a burger and looked at the wall. But that was a cool gesture on her end. She knows that Dudism
is very cool,
important to me, and even though she's a diehard Christian, and she's non-denominational for the most part. I think her family is Episcopal, but that church is super boring to go to. So I think she kind of hangs in the non-denominational part, but she takes her beliefs in God and all that very seriously. So for her to kind of embrace my own thoughts on it is a pretty cool gesture in my mind. That it shows tolerance at least.
Well, there's nothing in Dudism actually that says you can't believe in anything else either. So, that's another cool aspect. If you believe in God and you believe in, or even if you believe Jesus is your savior or whatever, there's nothing that says you can't still be a Dudist. It's just about it's more about state of mind than it is about who I particularly care to follow. So, yeah, but that's definitely cool that she they did that for you. You've kind of found the good ones when they're willing to, take into consideration the things you like as well, not just their own stuff.
Exactly. Especially when it comes from a Christian standpoint, where in all the churches I've ever been to, it's pretty well ingrained in you to not be tolerant of other people's religions, that it's Christ or nothing kind of a deal. So
yeah,
for her to look past that, it was a big deal to me. That was the biggest part of the whole evening. Actually, was that I was very impressed with her ability to do that, and then reaffirmed my belief that I had found the right one.
Yeah. So I'll give you a story from way back, right? So I was driving down the road one day and saw this mother with her kids stranded by the side of the road. Their car had a flat tire, and she didn't. This is back. Cell phones weren't all that common. People had them, but they were still pretty big, and she did not have a cell phone. So she's stranded by the side of the road with her kids in the middle of nowhere. And so I stop, I pull over. She didn't have a spare, so I couldn't help her out and put a spare on her car. But I told her, I said, if there's somewhere I can take you, let's, I'll give you a ride to wherever you guys need to go. Right. So she says, sure. She hops in, and, tells me that she wants me to drive her over to her church because she was headed to her church, and the people at her church can help her with her car after she gets there. But so I drive her over, and this is a Southern Baptist church, by the way. So I drive her over to her church, and she's talking to me on the way and stuff, and she's asking me about what religion I am and all this stuff. And so I guess I made the mistake of, well, I'm not too religious. I said I kind of grew up Catholic, but, don't really go to church all that often. Probably should go more or something. But, that was more appeasing her than reality. I had no plans of going to church frequently. But it's just not my bag, man. But so I was talking to her, and then we get to her church, and the last thing this woman tells me is, you should really come to my church. I'd hate to see you go to hell. I was like, wait a second, didn't I just stop and help you and, drive you 22 miles to your church? and now I'm going to hell because I don't go to your church or follow your particular belief. And so, yeah, that was one of those things that turned me off a lot. But yeah, I just thought that was funny and interesting. So,
that's exactly it, though. I mean, that was always the thing that turned me off about the whole thing, is that you can be a good person. You can be a great person that will go out of their way for anybody, do anything, devote your life to helping others, essentially, if you so choose to be. And according to the Christian belief, you'll still go to hell if you don't sign your life over to Jesus. But on the other end, I could take a knife and go stab everybody in my neighborhood, and I won't go to hell if I apologize to the priest and ask for forgiveness. And that just doesn't really make sense. If life is supposed to be a test, if you get an A on the test but misspell your name, you shouldn't fail the test. But on the same token, if you miss all the answers and apologize to the teacher, you shouldn't automatically get an A. That doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, I kind of see that too. But yeah, kind of like I said before, though, man, whatever people want to believe, that's their own bag. That and you can be a good Christian, a good person, and you can be a good Christian and a bad person. So just like you can be so anybody has that good and bad in them. And so I don't know. I don't worry too much about what other people follow or what they believe. I'm definitely not somebody that's going to go stomp on anybody else's stuff. That's just, it's what they believe. But yeah, it's cool that you were able to have that experience with your girlfriend and stuff, and get out, and it was cool that she was open to going out and doing things, based on what you believe in your side as well. So yeah, good to hear. My day of the dude was a little wild. I would call it somewhat undude in that there was a lot of work done. There was not a lot of abiding and relaxing by any means, but it was definitely very dude in that there was a lot of good things that happened. So I had decided that, as part of kind of the launching, because I decided to launch the website Order of the Dude. I decided to launch it on the day of the dude, right? So one of the things I decided that I was going to do with that was to basically, if I could get 200 people to either comment or like the Order of the Dude page on Facebook, or really just like or comment on the announcement of the Order of the Dude page. I had posted it in the Dudism page and on the Church of the Latter-day Dude, their page. I'd posted the announcement on there, and then I just basically sat back and counted and watched the likes, coming in. And so I'd said if I'd gotten 200 comments and likes by the end of the day, that I was going to, donate up to $200 to the No Kid Hungry campaign that Jeff Bridges is part of. So what ended up happening was by the end of all that, I probably had, between comments and likes and things like that, between the different pages, I probably had close to 500, right? So it was definitely cool. We ended up with 200 people plus that actually liked the Order of the Dude page on Facebook, and traffic on the Order of the Dude website was pretty high, which is www.orderthedude.com, and so it, we definitely had a good start. And rather than just doing the $200 that I was originally going to go ahead and donate, I did $250 and got my company to match it. So we ended up giving a $500 donation to the No Kid Hungry campaign. So I thought that was pretty cool, pretty dude. And then
that is very cool.
Yeah, so then me and my special lady friend, also known as my wife, she is very dude herself, we decided that we were going to go and spend the day and relax, and, well, not the day, but a couple hours. We went to this little bar in St. Augustine called Sangria's, and they have this awesome sangria called the Havana Banana. It is worth the trip. If you're ever in St. Augustine, Florida, you got to go to Sangria's and you got to get this Havana Banana sangria. It's amazing. So we had a picture of that shared between the two of us, and by the end of that, we were feeling pretty dude. So that was pretty much my day. But it was fun, with all the work that I did on the website and stuff, and with all of that, it consumed a good portion of the day. So a little undude there, but definitely for doodly purposes. And by the end of the day, we had gotten a $500 donation, and I had gotten a little tipsy, so that was a good day.
That is a good day. Your day was much more productive than mine. I definitely took her easy. That's for sure.
Yeah. So, hopefully next year I'll maybe take it easy, but next year I'm hoping to organize kind of a Day of the Dude get together. This year I had somewhat organized it, but it was on the day before the Day of the Dude, and there were only a couple of people that came out, so it wasn't all that exciting. Hopefully next year we can get a much bigger group together.
I think it's more about just getting the word out there. A lot of the people that I tell about dudism look at me like I'm speaking in another language. Like you grew a second head? Yeah, or they they chuckle it off as I'm just kidding kind of a thing. And then when I try to tell them I'm not kidding, then that's when the real funny looks come out, because they're like, what do you mean? And you have to explain to them that, well, I don't worship, Jeff Bridges' character in this movie. It's more of a following his example of the way to lead a good lifestyle sort of a thing. It's a take it easy philosophy as opposed to him as a deity.
Right. It's iconism or iconism rather than dogmatism, right? So the idea that you're trying to exemplify or trying to live your life similar to the way the dude lived, and in the idea of abiding and going with the flow, but you're not trying to worship him. He's not the God. So one thing they say in Buddhism, right? So the ones that get Buddhism, that actually do it correctly, is, and there was a really kind of a famous guru that tagged this line, but I can't, off the top of my head, I can't remember what his name was, but he tagged the line, if you love Buddha, kill Buddha, right? The idea that he's not the God, right? So you don't worship him, you worship what he was about. And so similar with the dude, and you don't worship the dude, you worship what he was about, and what he stood for, and his lifestyle. And so, that's kind of where that goes. But anyway, man, I don't know where I'm going with that.
Well, I feel like it's hard in mainly Western culture we're so ingrained with the Abrahamic religions as being the only religion that makes sense, whether it's, being Jewish or being Christian or Islam or any of that stuff. Those are the three that we recognize the most. So we almost need like a deity of some kind, some sort of overseeing deity that's telling us what to do and something we can appease for it to make sense to people around here. I mean, when you start talking about ideology and things like that, people don't understand what you're talking about. It seems like, at least in my experience, people look at you like you're crazy. Like, what do you mean? Well, it's not about worship. I'm not worshiping any specific god, or I'm not trying to appease any specific god. It's more about a lifestyle and a good way of living and a philosophy of how to take each day. And people around here, especially like I said, small town Iowa, it's very Christian sort of upbringing. I mean, I was really branched out lately into in these last few years into more of a open mind, kind of liberal mindset when it comes to most things. And now atheism is a big thing around here. So people still look at you like you're crazy, or they give you the whole, that's hilarious, how can I get involved because, religion is stupid kind of thing. And all. It's like, well, it's not really supposed to be a stupid kind of thing.
It's not like the Pastafarians that like to stick their fingers in the eyes of the other religions of the world. It's, we're cool with everybody else's religions, man. Just abide and, live and let live, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, so I live in the Bible Belt, brother. So you can imagine what people, the view people have if I happen to mention that, well, my followings are kind of on the Dudism lines. And so I get those nice cross-eyed looks from people that, what? So, what are you talking about? What's that? I don't understand you, son. So I'm, it's kind of a different world down there. So I've got to be kind of, not necessarily discretionary. I'll tell anybody who asks about it, but it's not like something I go out and broadcast. Hey man, I'm gonna do this. I don't go out wearing a bathrobe in public. But yeah, I do have the sweater though. I have worn that. I do have the Pendleton sweater, and I will break that out on occasion.
I need to get one of those. I see them on Amazon and on eBay every once in a while, and I want to snag it, but they're usually pretty pricey.
The price tag is damn undude, I'll tell you that. So,
yeah.
But, it was my rug. It's what tied my little universe together. Although, the rug, I do have a rug, but yeah, that little sweater tied my universe together. So I said, you know what? Fuck it, dude. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna pay the extra. I'm gonna get it. And I'm not somebody who needs a whole lot of shit. So, the things that I do get, I try to make them things that are important and or at least have meaning for me. So I put up the money. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm about there with you. I don't have a whole lot of extras in terms of like flashy things like clothes and stuff like that. I mean, most of my money I spend on tattoos and, time at the firing range, because that's kind of that's one of my ways of unwinding, is going out and shooting targets. It's relaxing in a Walter sort of way.
Yeah, little Walter there, but you know what? I can definitely understand. When I've gone and fired guns at the range and stuff like that, and it can actually be, almost meditative, and keeping your concentration and focusing on your breathing and things like that. So, yeah, I can definitely understand that.
And that's what I like about it. It's relaxing, and it's a skill. It's something to work on. It's something you can develop, and you have to be calm, and you have to be cool and collected while you do it, or you won't get good results. It's like you said, it's almost meditative in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, I think I'm about talked out. So it was great talking to you. We'll do this again next time, and have a good night, and talk to you later, man. Okay, so I gotta tell you why we don't have Daniele Bolelli on the show tonight. Well, let me just first say it's because I'm a complete dumbass. So I sat down with the dude and we had a good hour and a half. Amazing conversation about pretty much everything. And at the end of that hour and a half, I was sitting and just chatting with him, picked up the recorder, took a look, and realized that the record button was never on. Yeah, not the greatest move, but the good thing is he's a really good dude, and he has agreed to come on the podcast here in the next couple of weeks. So you can look forward to Daniele Bolelli of the Drunken Taoist fame, and, you know, dude's an author, martial artist, philosopher, history professor. You can name just about anything, and the guy's probably touched on it. So we're looking forward to having him here in the next couple of weeks, but you got yours truly to thank for not having him on this show. But I would encourage you to go check out his podcast, The Drunken Taoist. The guy is amazing, has a great outlook on life and philosophy. If you want interesting historical stories and that kind of stuff, he's actually got another podcast called History on Fire that's just, incredible. Gets you interested in history when you never thought you would have been. Guy's a good dude. So, other than that, that's probably going to be a wrap. Don't forget, if you enjoyed the podcast, head over to iTunes and give us a rating. And hopefully you'll give us a good rating. Be sure to check out our website, www.orderofthedude.com. If you have events or doodly happenings that you'd like to advertise and get the word out, just drop us a line at dude@orderthedude.com. And if you'd like to be a guest on the DudeCast, you can drop us a line at dude@orderthedude.com, or you fill out the form on the website and we'll get back to you. Lastly, be sure to check out our Facebook page and give us a like. It's facebook.com/Order of the Dude. Anyway, till next time, take it easy, dudes. Do a J and relax.